Galactic Standard Date. Year 11356. Day 96. Sol Standard Date. 4th of the 8th, 3267. Once Basilisk got back to the two he left behind, he settled in with Draconis and spent a few weeks learning from her. With that, a few minutes had passed in his reality. Basilisk wrapped up the training with Draconis. After they finished, he opened a rift back to the landing pad they had been at previously to see that the ants there had already begun building a shrine where they had left. Basilisk just shook his head as he shuttled Draconis through the rift. As soon as he crossed the threshold, he could hear the muttered prayers and slight gasps from the worshippers around. He decided to focus on something else and scan the area for Tamali. Eventually, his eyes found the ant that was dressed differently from all the clergy and soldiers around, and quickly made his way over to her. She gave him a quick nod as soon as she saw him coming towards her, and pulled out a datapad with all the relevant information he needed, as well as making sure she had the call with the queens ready to go as soon as he was ready. As soon as he got close enough, she held out the pad and gave a quick bow. Lord Slayer, I have compiled all our laws and a quick rundown of our history for your review. I also have a call with the queens set up and ready as soon as you are. Basilisk smiled at her and knelt down to grab the datapad.
Thank you, Miss Mali. I appreciate the professionalism, and it's impressive that you were able to get a call ready with your civilization's leaders on such short notice. I wouldn't have worked with my people so well back when we still had the old governments.
He flipped through the datapad for a few minutes and committed it to memory before he looked back down at Mali.
So, how do I start the call with the queens?
He asked as he knelt back down and showed her the pad. She used her antenna to tap a blue icon on the screen and smiled up at him. Once you tap the blue icon again, it will initiate the call. He looked downcast at the realization that he probably seemed like an old man who couldn't work a cell phone to this ant, as he stood to his full height and tapped the blue button to initiate the call. The call was immediately answered with, So, this is the Almighty Slayer. How wonderful to finally meet you. As long as you are who you say you are. However, we wish to see you in person before we make that judgment and hand over any information of true value. No information pertaining to Lanicia will be brought to your attention until that point. Basilisk nodded slowly at her words and gave her a bright smile.
I like that. Viewing me with suspicion until you see me is an admirable and good leadership quality. So, on that note, I could always just open a rift there. That way you can see me face to face. All you would need to do is point the camera at an empty part of the room with a high enough ceiling for me to stand in. I'll need at least 15 feet to stand uncomfortably, and 17 feet is my preference.
The Queen paused for a second, and her antenna twitched a little. 17 feet? Like, as in, building-sized?
Basilisk looked aside awkwardly. Well, if your buildings are that tall, then yes.
The Queen looked off camera and whispered, something that the mic couldn't pick up, before she looked reluctantly back at the camera. So we have space in the throne room, but I don't know if we should do that. If you wouldn't mind waiting, we can take you outside to the Royal Gardens.
Basilisk gave her a quick nod. Of course, anything is fine. In fact, I like nature and would love to see your gardens.
The Queen gave him a quick nod and headed out to their gardens. Once they arrived, she pointed the camera out at the garden for the camera to see. Basilisk quickly took in the location and started making a rift there. The Queens of the Tour of Hare looked at each other in confusion, as they wondered what a rift opening up on their front lawn would look like. After a few seconds of waiting, they saw a saw point slowly stab into their space, seemingly from nowhere. Ever so slowly, 7 feet of sword appeared before it, sliced downwards, and opened a tear in reality. The Queens watched as the imposing figure of Basilisk slowly appeared, with the backdrop of hell behind him. The massive body, made of blackened and veil-twisted steel, complete with wings, claws, and glowing eyes, made for a look that wouldn't have been out of place on a demon. They eyed him with trepidation as he stepped through the rift, with a solid thunk that shook the surroundings. The Queens were at a loss of words at the sheer size of Basilisk, as they silently stared at the behemoth. Finally he spoke. Pretty garden! I love the fountain with the flowers arranged across it. It looks very natural. The waterfall ones are my favourite too. I'd love to know what plants you have here. I recognise some, but there are quite a few that have no analogue to a Terran plant. The god-slain behemoth talking about flower arrangements took all the trepidation out of their systems, and they started giggling to themselves.